For the right time.
Hey guys, welcome in. So today we have spring roundup number 3 for you all today. USC resumed spring practice yesterday in the rain, and USC also held their pro day as well. So we have a ton to get to today. There's so much content out there that comes out after practices. The goal of the roundup is to compile all the important stuff into one place here on the channel. That way you guys get the full scope of news and updates without all the other stuff. But before we get into it, if you are enjoying the videos, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to help support the channel in an even bigger way, you can do so over on my Patreon for only $1 a month. Thanks so much for tuning in, and let's get into it. Okay, first up for the roundup, we have the head coach, Lincoln Riley. First, Lincoln was asked about the rain at practice and why he sees it as a positive rather than a negative.
You got to take advantage of it when you got the best weather in college football. You don't get many of these days, and we've actually, obviously, as we all know, we've had more than normal. I'm gonna tell Mike and President Folt, you guys told me the weather's gonna be a hell of a lot better than this. So, but no, it's been good. We've actually, even in February and early March, some rescheduled some walkthroughs that we had the days that it did rain so that we could get out in it. Because you just don't get to practice in the elements much. So the guys know me. I'm always excited when it's going to be windy or rain or anything that's just a little bit of a change up. So no, good work. It's great ball handling, great for footing. It's just the game is a little bit different when you get in those conditions, and having to adjust is good for every position on the field.
So with the upcoming move to the Big Ten, the snow talk is completely overblown. As someone who lives in Ohio, there are rarely snow games in the Big Ten. However, rain is a lot more common, so getting used to that can only help. Lincoln was then asked about the defensive front in comparison from last year to this year.
Athleticism-wise, up front defensively as opposed to a year ago?
Better. I mean, there's more good players up front. I mean, there's some of that is some of the returners that have come back have had to change their bodies. Have had to a few guys trimming up, a few guys putting on mass. Most of them all putting on strength and adding strength, and so that's been good. And then obviously with some of the guys we brought in, we brought in some good players up front. I mean, there's no question about it, and we've got a few more coming. So you can just see, I think there's more competition. There's less of a gap between, what was good for us last year on the front, and then the gap in between the next level was too big, right? And so the gap's much smaller. There's a lot more competition. There's a lot more talent. I think that this group has shown, I think, that an opportunity to be more difficult for offenses to block than our group last year. Just like I said, the pieces are in place, and like I said, coaches have done a good job getting them in the right spot here early.
So you've got to love the brutal honesty there from Coach. The front last year was not good enough at all. One of the players who will look to improve that defensive line is Texas A&M transfer Anthony Lucas, and here's what Lincoln had to say about him.
He's intriguing. Yeah, he's exciting. He's a unique athlete for his size. There's just not many body types like that walking around, and to have the athleticism behind it's been great. And he's done a really nice job acclimating himself to the team, getting a chance to these transfers, especially like a young transfer like that. I mean, he's been at 2 places in a relatively short amount of time, and this is a big adjustment. And I give him a lot of credit. He's handled it well. He's handled just kind of the overall transition. His work ethic's been great. He's really bought into everything that we're doing, and I think he sensed an opportunity, and he certainly, I'm glad he's on our team, I'll put it that way.
So you love to hear that. Anthony is a player that really doesn't have a ceiling. If he steps up this year and becomes a force, I mean, that defensive front could be very exciting. And lastly, with Lincoln, he was asked about his plans regarding roster movement and potential portal additions. Here's what he had to say.
Do you have maybe a ballpark number of how many more guys you're looking to bring onto the roster?
That's hard to say, just because there'll be more movement on the roster. I mean, that's you can't always predict exactly, how many more guys are going to leave. You don't have control on other guys getting in the portal, so some of that's going to depend on what's there and how many upgrades that we think are available. But yeah, I mean, we still got a couple of scholarships open that we're going to be in the market for a couple of positions. We'll see how it plays out. Like I said, it's probably a little too early to say right now. You never know when like what happened with Jordan last year, when a great player like that jumps in, you got to look at him regardless of position. And I do think there's going to be, some guys that if they do get in, are going to be pretty excited about coming and playing on this team and at this place, like we've seen over here the last 2 years. So we'll keep an open mind. If a guy can come in and help us, we've got some room, and I would expect I think it'll be more than one. I mean, I think there'll be multiple opportunities here once spring ends.
So that's great to hear, and I've been saying it for a while now, but we need at least 2 interior defensive linemen. The depth there really isn't acceptable. We're 1 injury away from being in a truly terrible spot. I mean, ideally, you would like to add a starter at that spot, someone with Power 5 experience and preferably 300 pounds plus. I could see another offensive lineman with experience at center come in. And like Lincoln Riley said, if there's a major impact player at any position outside of quarterback and probably running back, you go after him. But overall, great stuff there from Coach Riley. He seemed to be in a very chipper mood, so that's always good to see. Next up, we have USC defensive coordinator Alex Grinch. Now, before we get into this one, everybody please take a moment to take a deep breath. Let all the anger out, and remember, I'm just the messenger, so don't get mad at me for telling you what he says. Okay, so first up for Coach Grinch. He was asked about the first steps for evaluating and fixing the USC defense. Here's what he had to say about that.
You start with individual calls, and so basically you rehash the entire season. And then you kind of start with explosive plays, and you kind of rip the Band-Aids off real quick. And so you start with the negative, and that's the appropriate thing to do. And you first look at it through the lens from a coaching staff standpoint. Okay, what can we do to affect the behavior of our guys? Can we put them in a better situation to be successful? And it takes a lot of discipline, and it takes a lot of maturity in that as a coaching staff to go through it, because you're rehashing the most frustrating plays of the season, and it's fresh. We're in here the day after the game, and so you look at it through that lens, and then you're saying, okay, what can we do? And what you have to do in those moments is you have to have an honest evaluation. You've got to make sure that you look at it from the standpoint of if it's as simple as, all right, there's a guy that should be in the position to make a play, he's not there. Well, that it sounds simple enough, but why? And then part of the evaluation that makes it really difficult, if you say X, Y, and Z should happen, it didn't. Is there something we can go back from a preparation standpoint that would lend ourselves to believe that maybe it goes back to just that, really preparing it in a better way. Other situations, the guys at the point of attack is in a position to make a play. How can we help them make the play next time? But what you don't do is just don't throw your hands up and pound and play victim, and then you attack from the mindset of, okay, let's look at it through the lens of situational calls, and so you kind of break it down that way. And look at red zone defense. You look at it through third down. You look at it through P and 10, first and 10. And so it's a comprehensive study, and you got to look at it once again. And ultimately, those plays, show up quite a bit, right? So you watch it over and over again, and then you look at it. Okay, what can we do from a physical standpoint? So often you got what's the most tangible thing you can do in January. You come off, you're disappointed. We went through what a lot of basketball teams are going through right now. They didn't get out the first weekend. That happens, and it doesn't dismiss. Those kids won 11 games, and they deserve credit for that. So you don't dismiss that. But what's the most tangible thing that we can do in the moment is bigger, faster, stronger. So you attack in that mindset. So it's all encompassing, and then it's ongoing. And then what you do is then you take it on the practice field and say, okay, well these are the things, some adjustments that maybe we want to make. Is there a coaching point? It may not be big picture scheme, but it may just be simply, are we asking an individual guy to do the appropriate thing within that scheme.
All right, so I like a lot of what I heard there from Alex. I agree with most everything he said there. One thing that gets lost with a lot of people is that they think he is directly coaching the bad habits we saw displayed out there on the field last year. You guys have to remember that a lot of these guys on the field have been coached by Todd Orlando for the last 2 or 3 years, so just a lot of bad habits were taught there. And remember that last year the defense did look pretty good up until that first game against Utah. After that Kalen Bullock INT got called back, things kind of fell apart. And then the defense took an absolute nosedive until the Notre Dame game. And obviously the finish to the year was just a defensive nightmare. But when this defense was at its worst, what did we all say? It looks like last year. Those bad habits are still there for a lot of guys, and I promise you, Grinch does not coach these guys to blow coverages. He doesn't teach them to tackle like kids in Pop Warner. There are many different faces in there this year, and I really think the defensive unit is going to be vastly improved. If I'm wrong and it's just as bad or worse, I will come on here and give you guys a victory lap at my expense, I promise you. But I have faith that this defense will be much better. But going back to that Grinch clip, you can see how hurt he still is by the way the defense finished the year. I can't even imagine how badly he wants his guys to get out there on the Coliseum grass and shake off that end of the year. Okay, so moving on, let's hear from former fake USC running back Marshawn Lloyd as he talks about his relationship with USC quarterback Caleb Williams.
Honestly, Caleb told me, he said, he texted me, he said, come here now, let's go to the league. He said, let's win the national championship. He said, then let's go to the league. And I was like, let's go. I'm all for it. So it was just a great conversation.
And you actually played against him in high school.
Yes, I played against him in Little League and high school. I hated it every time because I couldn't do anything to stop him, but all his defense couldn't do anything to stop me. So it was just like every time, we played against each other. It was a great game. My school and his school were actually, really good rivals. Well, actually the biggest rivals in our conference. Both all boys private schools, so it was really fun to be able to play against him every year.
So that's super cool that these two go as far back as Little League, at no point having played on the same team, but will now be partners in the SC backfield together. Very cool and should make for an easy transition for Marshawn. Marshawn was also asked to describe his game, and here's what he said.
Can you break your game down for us? What you bring to the field, you feel your strengths are?
Definitely elusiveness. I'm able to get in and out of my cuts. I can be physical as well. And a lot of people don't realize I got a little speed to me as well, so I just can't wait to put that on showcase.
So as many of you know, I have predicted that Marshawn will be an All-American at season's end. So you already know how I feel about him as a player, but I'm curious to hear from you guys. What do you think about Marshawn's game? Make sure to let me know down in the comments. But one of my favorite parts about this time of year is getting to know and hear from all the new guys. Marshawn is very insightful, and I hope he gets the opportunity to talk a good amount this season because I really enjoyed listening to what he had to say. All right, next up we have former Arizona wideout Dorian Singer as he talks about his story and roots as a walk-on. Have a listen.
So I'm originally from Minnesota, so I had like 14 FCS offers. Wanted to move to Arizona, get some offers. I ended up losing those offers from moving from Midwest to West Coast. And I gained like 3 offers, tried to commit, but COVID. So then I basically lost all my scholarships. And then like 2 months before all the freshmen were arriving on campus, I still didn't have nowhere to go. And Arizona just gave me the opportunity to walk on.
Was there a worry for you? Like, where am I going to end up? Like, how's this gonna work out?
Pretty much. But I just have faith in God, and just this whole process for me has been different from everybody else. So if you believe in things, just happen.
Crazy story there. Obviously for our sake as SC fans, we are happy things played out the way they did, but guys like this are why the transfer portal exists. So guys like Dorian who grind their way to being an elite player have the opportunity to transfer somewhere that will get them into the league and change their families' lives forever. I mean, that's a wonderful story and a real show of belief and resilience from Dorian. Some of the things I noticed just about Dorian the person is that he seems like a real blue-collar lunch pail kind of dude, a real solid program guy, shout out JD Piquel, but I think guys like this are very important for the dynamics in the locker room, but particularly for the receiver room in general. If you've played football even just at the high school level like I did, you know that the wideouts can be a little moody, a little high and low from day to day. Having a guy like this is very important to maintaining that balance. Okay, now we have one of the more intriguing players for the 2023 season, and that's wideout Brendan Rice. This was just a phenomenal and hilarious media session here from Brendan. First off, he talks about why his performance in the Cotton Bowl was so outstanding compared to the rest of the season.
Honestly, I believe that me and Caleb finally got on the right page and finally stuck. Our chemistry just got better. We started hanging out more. We started talking to each other what we wanted from each other. We're trying to get that Jamar Chase and that Joe Burrow type of chemistry, and it's going to be exciting to see.
Still feeling those Chase and Burrow vibes early in camp here?
Oh, yeah. I'm loving it. I love what I see right now. We can definitely rise, but it's only the beginning of spring camp.
So I actually completely believe Brendan when he says that the chemistry between he and Caleb wasn't there. Throughout the majority of the year, he would make these really outstanding plays and he would just say, wow, but then he would drop a simple slant, or he would cut inside and Caleb would throw outside. Little things like that were just off all year between the two, but in the Cotton Bowl, it was completely different. Caleb trusted Brendan and they were dialed in on the same page all game. Next up, Brendan was asked about his leadership role heading into year 2 with the program. Here's his response.
Oh yeah, I definitely got to speak up now because TB and all my old heads are gone. So I definitely got to step up, make sure I'm on point, and make sure I lead the guys the right way.
It's hard to say you're an old head now?
Man, nah, not too bad. I'm still, Kyron almost has me. It's, them Cali kids get held back, so.
If you played high school ball in California, you know how right he is about Cali kids getting held back. It's crazy how often that happens there. But lastly, he was asked about how his body feels having an entire offseason here with the program.
Oh, most definitely. Last year I was a lot skinnier. Been in the weight room, stronger, got faster. Just so y'all know, I'm the fastest on the team. We all raced. I won. But yeah, just shout out to Coach Wiley. He helped us in because honestly, we got in this weight room and we went to work, right back to work. We didn't even get a full week off.
Would love to see some footage of that race, but Brendan does look bigger, and if he's faster too, oh my goodness. Look out, Pac-12. Okay, so finally we'll wrap up with USC's Pro Day. It was a terrible rainy day in LA, which of course led to USC's practice field looking more like a river than a football field. And there's been a big fuss made about this on Twitter, and I really see two sides to it. Does USC need a full-size indoor field? No, it's LA, it's Southern California. Why would you need that? But at the same time, it's kind of crazy that a school with the resources that USC has doesn't have a full-size indoor field. I will say, hopefully our facility upgrades are announced soon, because you go watch those facility tour videos and Arkansas baseball has nicer facilities than our football program does. But moving to the actual event itself, I felt horrible for Travis Dye, who does look healthy and fantastic by the way, but he had to run the 40 on the soaked field and he ran in the 4.7s, which is obviously terrible for a running back. Our guys were not set up for success at all, but on the brighter side of things, it was great seeing Voorhees and Nealon back out there in good spirits. Former Trojans Vivaya Malapei and Eric Kromenhoek were there and worked out as well, so that was cool to see. Jordan Addison and Mekhi Blackman look great, surprise to no one. Whoever drafts Mekhi Blackman is going to get stud. I really hope my Browns grab him. He's going to be a great pro. Alright guys, that is all I have for you today. Actually, as I'm recording this, USC tight end Malcolm Epps has entered the transfer portal. The timing of that is very interesting. Makes you wonder if a certain 5-star tight end is going to end up choosing USC after all. Regardless, make sure you keep it locked in here on the channel. We will have everything about that and anything USC related covered on this channel here. Again, if you did enjoy the video, a like and a subscription would mean the world. Thank you all so much for tuning in. You're all awesome, and as always, take care and fight on.